I'm his friend. He ain't giving nothing away. To the loved ones, you gotta earn it. You gotta work. And then the person who was chopping at his tree for so long, I just don't see it happening.
Rockefeller breaking up. You realize now loyalty was probably a one-way street.
Definitely. Not everybody look at loyalty the same way as you do.
He says it calm, but the meaning cuts deep. If you think Jay-Z is handing out favors, you don't understand how this family split apart. Rockefeller wasn't just a label, it was a code. Money moves, loyalty vows, unspoken rules from the street to the boardroom. And when that code cracked, it didn't break clean. People chose sides. Some got pushed, some walked, some stayed silent. Tonight, we're not telling a fairy tale about a business deal gone wrong. We're tracing a fracture line through a dynasty. Dame Dash versus Jay-Z. Told firsthand by Memphis Bleak in his club Shay Shay Sit Down, you'll hear how it felt inside the room. Keep watching, because the line that got crossed, you're going to hear it in their own words and see exactly when brothers became opponents. They didn't meet in a boardroom. They met in a neighborhood that made ambition a survival skill. Before the suits, before the billion-dollar headlines, this was a friendship built in hallways and studio basements, long before lawyers and CEOs got involved. That's what makes the split so hard to swallow. The origin story reads like family history, not a corporate partnership.
What was it about you and him? What connected y'all?
Families. My mother and his sister was best friends, you know? It's no age where I know I met Jay. I just always knew it.
That's the foundation. Family proximity turned professional gravity. Jay became the plug, the magnet. Doors opened because he pushed them open. Features, cameos, power networks. He could make a video set feel like Madison Square Garden and the Met Gala rolled into one.
I met her at the video shoot. If you pay attention to the video, we had Megan Good in the video too. Serena was in the video. That was Jay, man. Jay was the plug.
But here's the quiet truth inside a loud era. Success rewires relationships. You don't hear that in the club. You feel it in the phone calls that stop, in the favors that suddenly have invoices. When a crew becomes a company, somebody turns into a boss, and somebody else refuses to be an employee. That friction doesn't announce itself. It collects interest.
You must maintain the upkeep.
And a lot of people, they don't even know what they ask for. They don't even know they're asking for a bill. Like, okay, you're asking for a bill. I hope you can maintain these things.
After 50 yeses, one no.
You're the biggest enemy in the world. Changes everything.
Oh my God.
So imagine a label born from independence, powered by pride and street smarts, suddenly walking into rooms with too much money and too much power and egos to match. The same qualities that made The Rock untouchable started turning inward like knives at a dinner table.
It's the inside.
And too much money, man. Too much money, too much power. It brings egos, really big egos, man, and it's uncontrollable.
This is where our story sharpens. From the outside, it looked like champagne and platinum plaques. Inside, it was pressure, decisions, hierarchies, leverage. And if you're Dame Dash, the loudest defender of independence, you don't just disagree in private, you press in public. You shove the culture forward with your chest out. That's admirable, until the man you're pushing stands perfectly still and lets you fall. Next, you'll hear the first cracks from someone who watched it happen up close. Money changed the room, and once that happened, everything else fell in line, including the breakup nobody thought could happen. Here's where the air went cold. It wasn't one explosion, it was a slow freeze. Money didn't just show up, it reorganized the table. Who talks? Who signs? Who gets looped in? Who doesn't? And who decides it's time to ship people out?
He can kick Dame down something and get him out of that situation, come man, you know, blah, blah, blah.
That's not Jay. I'm just letting you know that right now. Shit, I'm his friend. He ain't giving nothing away. To the loved ones, you gotta earn it. You gotta work. And then the person who was chopping at his tree for so long, I just don't see it happen.
That's the difference between nostalgia and reality. The comment section wants a movie ending where the boss reaches back and writes a check. Bleak is telling you the real. That's not who Jay is. In a house where every dollar is proof you didn't fold, a handout doesn't feel like kindness. It feels like disrespect.
Oh, that's why I say money is the root of all evil, man. Money is, it changes everything you know.
Rockefeller breaking up.
Worst day of my life. I remember at Change Clothes video shoot, you know, me and Dame had a little argument, personal, and Jay didn't like that, and we had a conversation. If none of these guys don't ship up and act right, we gonna ship them out. It ain't gonna be none of this no more. And I'm like, huh?
Read that again. Ship them out. That's not subliminal. That's a policy. Once those words enter the atmosphere, every conversation has a countdown. People start choosing sentences carefully, or they stop getting invited to the room. And when you're Dame, the man who built the house by kicking doors, careful isn't in your vocabulary. You argue on set, you hold court in offices, you fight for your version of loyalty. But money forces definitions. To Jay, loyalty means deliver results and don't embarrass the brand. To Dame, loyalty means stand with the crew in public, work out the smoke in private. Those two codes can't coexist forever, not when each side thinks the other one is breaking the rules. Here's the twist that hurts. Both of them were right about what loyalty meant to themselves, and both were wrong for assuming the other would bend. One man grabbed the steering wheel and drove into the corporate skyline. The other tried to slam the brakes in the middle of traffic. You know what happens then. We're about to step into the most human part of the story. The day Dame wasn't an executive or a headline. He was a brother saving another brother's career on the spot. And that's exactly why the breakup feels like a betrayal that still stings. Before the split, before lawyers and lawsuits, there was a code that made The Rock feel like a family. And families aren't gentle. They're protective. Ask Memphis Bleak. In the Club Shay Shay interview, he doesn't talk about Dame as a headline. He talks about him as a shield.
Dame saved my life, man. That's why when me and Dame get our little internet spat, I don't feel good about talking about anybody I once called brother in a negative light. This is how I like to talk about my brothers.
Right. There are moments in every empire that don't make the blogs. Closed doors, heated phone calls, a manager who thinks he has leverage until he meets Dame at full volume. That's the version Bleak remembers. The version where Dame drops everything and leans on a room until a bad contract problem becomes a solved problem. It wasn't pretty, it was effective, and it bonded people to him in a way that's hard to explain to outsiders who only see the chaos. But protection has a price. The person who fights for you starts to own the fight. Now imagine the collision course when another leader in the same house operates by a different gospel. Not protection, but pressure. Jay's love shows up differently. He'll rip the band-aid off, kick the distractions out, and tell you to level up or get left behind.
And Jay pulled up, I'll never forget, he kicked my girls out. He had to talk with me like, this what you want to do? You want to be in the projects with these girls? He like, bro, I'm rich. I'm trying to give you the opportunity to change your life, to change life in this apartment. I want to bring you with me, but if this what you want to do, cool, I'll leave you here to do it. And left, and I didn't see Jay for probably like a year or two after that. And I didn't even know contact, nothing. And it was one day I seen him in the projects and played my story. And I haven't missed another session or anything since that day.
Put those two energies in the same house, Dame's public protection and Jay's private pressure, and you get heat. The same intensity that rescued careers also lit fuses. To artists and staff, it felt like a choice. Stand behind the guy who would swing on your behalf, or align with the boss who wouldn't sugarcoat the hard truth even if it stung. In a world where reputation is currency, both codes are loyalty until they clash. And when money poured in, that clash got louder. The protector sees a crew. The pressure maker sees a company. One fights to keep the table big and familiar. The other trims the chairs to keep the machine efficient. Bleak's memories make one thing clear. Long before the dynasty collapsed, the fault lines were already there, carved by two different definitions of love. Next, watch how those definitions became policy. The breakup wasn't an explosion. It was a memo. It was a conversation after a music video argument. It was a sentence that told you the era was ending and told you who would decide when.
Money is the root of all evil, man. It changes everything you know.
Rockefeller breaking up.
I remember at Change Clothes video shoot, me and Dame had a little argument. Like something that got real personal, and Jay didn't like that. And we had a conversation, and he was like, yo, it's gonna come a time, if none of these guys don't ship up and act right, we gonna ship them out. It ain't gonna be none of this no more.
That is not a metaphor. That is management language entering a family. And once ship them out becomes the North Star, every loud hallway argument becomes a liability, not culture. Every "that's my brother" becomes "that's not on brand." You can feel the oxygen getting thin. Bleak says it flat. He tried to warn people, tried to translate the weather report. Some listened, most didn't. The credits started rolling. Power doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it's a quiet rerouting. Who gets looped on a call? Who learns about peace treaties at the show instead of in the meeting? That's where another line lands hard. Loyalty was not symmetrical. It was situational, and it was now strategic.
You realize now loyalty was probably a one-way street.
Definitely. Just because I'm loyal to a person don't mean he got to be loyal to me. Like,
Right.
I ain't get the call we was dead in the beef with Nas. I just show up to the show, Nas there. Like, oh, shit.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But It's still brotherly love where I know his intent behind it ain't malice.
Read between those lines. It's not just we grew apart. It's policy versus pride. Dame's policy was to handle smoke in public if the family was threatened. Jay's policy was to remove the smoke maker if the brand was threatened. If you're an artist, that shift feels like a betrayal. If you're the CEO, it feels like leadership. This is how friendships become footnotes on a cap table. Ship 'em out wasn't about one argument. It was the new operating system. The hook for the audience is the drama. The lesson for anyone paying attention is colder. Empires don't fall because enemies attack. They fall because internal rules change and the people who made the house don't recognize it anymore. Up next, we get to the decision point everybody loves to debate. When the dynasty split, who picked sides and why going back now isn't just unlikely, it's against the rules they wrote for themselves. When a dynasty splits, the fans want a clean story. Good guy, bad guy, roll credits. Real life is messier. Memphis lays out what it felt like inside. Loyalty wasn't a slogan. It was a currency that got devalued overnight.
But you know, when people see the roller coaster going up, they with you. When it's going down, they jump off.
They jump off.
Now we got the new crew, the people who really work and who earned their spot. You know what I'm saying?
That's how family becomes factions. Some cling to the old rules, public loyalty, argue in the open, protect the crew's image by showing you'll fight for it. Others choose the new rules, quiet rooms, private decisions, brand over bravado. Once those two philosophies exist under one roof, every hallway becomes a referendum. And the referendum never ends with a compromise. It ends with a choice. Bleak isn't romantic about it. He doesn't say we were victims. He says do the work or get out of the way. And he points to the clearest battlefield we have. The Jay versus Nas war. That wasn't just rhymes, it was strategy, discipline, and an operating system.
I'm never gonna agree with the fans. They try to say Ether was the best diss record in the Jay and Nas battle. Cool. We can't argue with the fans, but you know what we're gonna do?
What?
We're gonna make a classic album. We're gonna drop the Blueprint. We're gonna drop the Black Album. We're gonna do the things to out-hit your opponent. And that's how you win a war. You could lose a battle.
Right.
But you gotta win the war.
Yes.
Read between those lines. Picking sides wasn't only about Dame versus Jay, it was about methods. Dame's method was to swing first to protect the house. Jay's method was to out-execute everyone so the house couldn't be touched. If you were an artist at that time, your decision said something about you. Do you want the guy who will storm into your meeting and flip a table for you, or the guy who will change the meeting so the table never needs flipping? And this is why the split still stings in the culture. It's not that one side was right and the other wrong. It's that both sides felt like survival. One side survived by resisting the industry. The other side survived by mastering it. Once those paths diverged, every friendship had to declare a lane. And once you pick a lane, you inherit the enemies, the rules, and the consequences that come with it. Every long war has a moment that makes peace impossible. Bleak marks it early in the interview. Fast, raw, and personal. Not a rumor, not a sub, a line.
Oh, a quick one, because he took a shot at the big homie. And you see Jay with a little hiccup, somebody falsely accusing him, and you want to take a shot. He lucky it was on Instagram, so I'd have seen him. He'd have met the real me.
That's not industry talk. That's neighborhood talk. And when neighborhood talk enters corporate spaces, it turns meetings into minefields. Bleak's message is simple. There are debates, and then there are violations. Speak on business? That's one thing. Speak on a man's integrity, especially during a legal storm, and you're not critiquing, you're cutting. The irony is that both eras, Dame's and Jay's, preach standards. Dame's standard was visible. If you come for the family, you get checked in front of the cameras. Jay's standard is invisible. Protect the brand, move the rooms, and don't feed the circus. Either way, there's a bright red line, and Bleak is telling you it got crossed.
You see Jay with a little hiccup, somebody falsely accusing him, and you want to take a shot. He lucky it was on Instagram, so I'd have seen him. He'd have met the real me. He wouldn't have met Memphis Bleak. That's personal.
So why no reunion photo? Why does Rockefeller Forever feel like ancient graffiti now? Because the feud outgrew business. It turned into principle, and principle hardens. Bleak shrugs off the fantasy that success obligates handouts. That's not the code he learned, and it's not the code he's going to enforce.
Just live your life and enjoy it, man.
Yeah.
That's the advice I got for people. Live and enjoy. Don't worry about what others do. Control what you do.
That's the quiet answer to all the why won't Jay just questions. Because in this world, respect is earned now, not backpaid because of history. The moment someone crosses from critique to character assassination, the drawbridge goes up and it doesn't come back down. From here on, reconciliation isn't just unlikely, it's off code. And if you understand that, the next chapter of this story makes cruel sense. What happens after the bridge burns? By the time the dust settled, The breakup wasn't just about contracts or who owned which masters. It was about codes that couldn't live in the same room. Dame's code rewarded public protection. Jay's code required private control. And once those two laws clashed in front of cameras, every future conversation came with a cliff. Say the wrong thing, and somebody's legacy slips. Memphis Bleek keeps circling the same conclusion without theatrics. Respect is earned in the present, not backpaid because of history. If you speak on a man's character during a legal storm, you don't just critique him, you violate him. If you expect handouts because we built this together, you forgot the rule that built the rock in the first place. Work. The culture loves reunion fantasies. A Rockefeller brunch photo, an on-stage handshake, a documentary where everyone gets teary and the music swells. But Bleek's lens is colder and cleaner. The drawbridge isn't jammed, it's up on purpose. Because the moment the argument left business and started naming a man's integrity, it crossed from disagreement to disrespect. There's no press release for that. There's just distance. So what's left? Memory and momentum. Jay forged an empire by turning every slight into leverage. He won the boring meetings. Dame fought like a visible shield, and a generation learned to value independence because he refused to bow. Those truths can coexist. What can't coexist is a public feud about character inside a brand built on discipline. That's the part that never heals. And Bleek says it without saying names. Once you make it personal, there's no return.
Just live your life and enjoy it, man.
Yeah.
That's the advice I got for people. Live and enjoy. Don't worry about what others do. Control what you do. And that's how you win a war. You can lose a battle.
Right.
But you gotta win the war.
Yes.
And that's what I pray that's what they over there focused on, the war, not the battle.
There's a reason this story still pulls views decades later. It isn't nostalgia, it's instruction. Rockefeller made a blueprint for two kinds of power, the kind that protects loudly and the kind that executes quietly. You can love both, but you can't live by both forever. So here's how it ends. Not with a reunion photo, not with a diss. It ends with a choice. If you think loyalty means standing up in public, you'll always ride with Dame. If you think loyalty means delivering behind closed doors, you'll always ride with Jay. The rest is noise. And if you're still waiting on a fairy tale fix, listen one last time to the man who watched it from the inside. Earn it. Do the work. And don't ever confuse a memory with a favor. The rock didn't fall because of enemies. It fell when the rules changed and nobody blinked.